Hoping to make 2022 the best business year ever? Well, watch on. As a business accountant, my team and I spend all day long helping business owners on their journey. And one of the key areas we get involved with where people want us to is having a look with them at goal setting, where are they going to take their business? Because as accountants, we look a lot of the time at the measurement aspect. We're going to want to tell someone, yeah, you did great. Yeah, this is what you spent here. This is the turnover you did. These are all the customers you sold to, like all the cool stuff that's looking either back or looking currently, if we've got the right setup. So we can say, literally last month, you did this, last week you did this, in some stages, yesterday you did this, so you've got those great data. And for me, one of the key things that attracted me to the industry over 15 years ago now is the fact that technology was changing that face. Accountants used to be just people that file bits of paper, and there's still plenty of those around, but the more forward-thinking accountants want to know where are we right now and what we see, and those kind of things, and make some decisions there. And for me, when you can do that, one of the key things for business growth is to look at kind of what you want out of the business and your personal life as well, and it's a bit of a balance. So I did want to do a little video on that, because although we spend a lot of time on the channel looking at tax and everything else, and because we have been through COVID recently, there's been a lot of news and things. I did a few business improvement videos over the time, but starting early 2022, I would like to do some more now. We've got a bit more time, hopefully, fingers crossed. We've not got as much reactive news to talk about some of these things. And for me, it all starts with goals. So before we get into this, if you like these type of videos, make sure to click the subscribe button and the bell below so you get notified whenever we release more just like this. So then, you have to do the hard bit first, and this is the hard bit for me. And you have to sit in a quiet place, take some time away, and I know Christmas sometimes is a good time to do this, but sit, think about what is it you want from business and life. What does a day look like in your life in a year's time, 3 years' time, 5 years' time, right? What does a day look like? What do you want it to look like? What do you want to be doing on a daily basis? What does your business look like? What does it need to look like to support that? All these type of questions, and just think, what do I actually want? Because I think quite often, and if you've read The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, you'll know this story. They call it this idea that you're a technician in a job, and then you end up working for the craziest boss ever, and you're kind of just doing this job again, and you're not necessarily thinking about the overall wider picture. You're just thinking about getting the job done and paying your mortgage and things like this. But actually, you really need to kind of understand, I think, and seeing some owners that have done this phenomenal journey where they've done this, they've really concentrated on what is it that I want the other side of this. What is the business for? Am I going to sell it? Am I going to hand it down? Is it going to be a kind of a pension fund for me? Like, what's the deal? And I think looking at those short-term and slightly longer-term visions and goals is a really important piece. And what I'll probably do is in the notes below is I'll drop some other books and resources that you could look at to help you with this process as well, because I want to keep this into a kind of condensed top-level tips sort of video. But yeah, think about what you want. And what we've seen with some owners they do is they're actually even make themselves a little vision board. They'll cut little pictures out, stick them all up, stick it somewhere they see it every day, and it might be that holiday they want, that car they want, or just that lifestyle. It could be anything. But I do think linking your personal wants and desires and goals with your business goals in the small business world is really key, because quite often people say, I'm not really worried about the money or whatever, but then they want to have a Range Rover, and they want to go to the Maldives, and they want to take the kids to Disney and all this, and it's like, where's the cash coming from? It's over here. So actually, yes, you do need money, and let's concentrate on how we're going to improve that business to get that money. And it's all doable, and it's amazing what a bit of focus can do. So action point number 1, think about what it is you actually want from the business and you personally. Secondly then, knowing that, let's set some goals. And what I like to set some big goals and then break those down. So when we work with business owners, we quite often look at it. Someone will say, I don't know, we figured out that we need to turn over 200 grand, and at 200 grand, that makes, 50 grand for the owner. And there's various things you can run through in terms of figures to prove that number, especially if you've got historic things, you can work it out. If you sell product, you'll know that your products make, say, 30%, and actually by the time you paid your overheads, what's left in this example is 50 grand, right? When you paid all your costs, your overheads, then you've got 50 grand. Great, and that's what they need to achieve those goals. Great. Well, if we know that we need to sell 200 grand to get to that stage, and we're only on 150, how are we going to get that extra 50? How many is that on a monthly basis? How many is it on a weekly basis? How many extra sales do you need to do on a daily basis? And then you might then pick out some key targets on that and figure out, like, these are the drivers, these are the things that are going to make those sales happen. And you break those targets down and you set them. And that's fine, and that's how you kind of, there's this process then of really drilling down and making, like, well, literally, if it's a If you're a consultant, how many sales calls do I need to do? How many networking do's do I need to do? How many people do I need to sit in front of? You can set those kind of real micro goals. But I think it starts off with setting the big one. I need to turn over 200,000, or even better, in the way a lot of studies show it, is you say it in the way that you've already achieved it. So you say, I do turn over, I turn over 200,000, if that's what you're going to do. And you want to set those targets in what they call SMART. Now, if you've done any schooling on this, you probably would have come across it. I know there's tons of videos. If you just put SMART goals in Google, they'll come up. And the reason they're so popular is because they do actually work, and that is specific targets. So specific, you don't want to say, oh, I want to earn more money, because that's not specific enough. They want to be a target that like a child could tell whether you'd actually achieved it. So you want to be specific, you want to be measurable, so it's got to be measurable. Again, using the child example, if it's 200,000, that's your figure. So specific, measurable, it's got to be attainable to a degree, and you can argue about what that degree is, how big you want to go, how big or go home. It's like, do you want it to be a massive stretch mega goal, or do you want it to be something that's in the realms of achievable? And I think for most people, they like the achievable. Personally, I like to really stretch the realms of achievable, but achievable is good. Are they relevant, which is important? So are they relevant right now? Does it excite you? Is it the thing you need to concentrate on? Can you do it right now? Because there's nothing worse than setting a goal and a target that you're just not going to do because the time's not right for it. It's not relevant. It's not important enough right now for you to buy into it. So think about that. And then, is it time bound? That's the T in it. Is there a time limit on it? So personally, and working with some excellent business coaches and seeing what they do with their clients as well, this has been backed up, is I like 90 days or 12 weeks. And there's a great book actually behind me on a 12-week year, which I think is an interesting read if you're looking at that. And they talk about, people push for the final year end goals. Well, what happens if your year was only 12 weeks? And actually 90 days, I think studies have shown, and this is why quite a lot of business coaches use it as well, 90 days is a good time frame. But so yeah, wherever you set those things, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound, and keep those SMART targets and set those ready, and that will help, those bigger goals, then break them down and see what those things are you need to do to help reach those goals on a daily basis. So then, let's say you've got your SMART target, you know that you're going to do 200k by whenever, and that's set, you've got this bigger goal, and you've worked out that actually in order to get to 200k, I need to make X amount of calls per day, right? And they're going to drive it. So those sales calls are going to drive appointments, are going to drive conversions, are going to do everything, and ultimately at the end of it, that's going to allow me the extra sales I need to hit these big targets. Fine. You don't have any extra time in the day. That's quite a normal thing. And I think working with owners, if I got them all to list their biggest barrier, all of them would say time. Like nearly all of them. Okay, I might be exaggerating, might be all of them, but almost all of them would say time's the problem. Now, so we haven't got a time machine. We can't create time out of anywhere. So how are you going to fix that problem? And a lot of the time, that's an entire other video that we could probably talk about. But I think one of the key things is looking at, and I don't want to use the word audit because accountancy audit is a bit of a joke in there. But what I would say is do look at where you're spending your time right now. Personally, and I've done this for years, I actually track every 15 minutes what I'm doing, and that's probably the accountant built into me. But just have a note of what you're doing, and you'd be surprised where you're spending your time, and then start to make some decisions about what you're going to have to give up to do it, because ultimately you haven't got extra time. You have if maybe you're spending 3-4 hours a night binge watching Netflix, but if you but even then you're going to have to make that decision and commit to giving those things up if you're going to want to do these extra goals, because if you carried on as you are, you're going to get the same results, right? So have a look. How are you going to create that time? And again, there's probably an entire video on different ways you could potentially do this, but one of the things I am going to do is in the show notes below, I'm going to drop you a tool that's free to download from my website that helps you set these goals, and there's some good ideas. I think there's about 10 strategies in there, just quick wins of how to generate some extra time as well. So download that, and hopefully that will help set you on your way as well. And I mentioned it there, you're going to have to commit to it. So whatever you're going to do, you need to believe that it's possible. That's the key. I think working with owners, we've seen that is sometimes they don't believe it themselves. You need to believe that it's possible and understand it is. If you're in my position and you've worked with owners that have done this repeatedly, you're just like, it's easy, it's obvious. Like, you see people doing it all day long. It's completely there. But being in business on your own can be quite isolating. And I think people doubt themselves. It's like, no. If you put in the effort, the time, the consistency, just believe it's possible. And you'd be amazed the amount of people, they're not more intelligent than you or anything else. They're not more intelligent. They've not got any extra, most of the time, any extra skills or experience. It's just, they've done it, they lived it, and they've carried on with their goals and everything else. And don't get me wrong, there's different people. There are people who are more experienced and got more skill levels, but you'd be amazed at the amount of people that you think, wow, really, they've been this successful, and be like, yes, they have, because they've done the right things that they needed to do. So it's 100% possible, believe that. And then the other thing, you see this a lot in videos and books and that, but I again seen it with owners that have been successful. Writing your goals down, reaffirming it to yourself. You see people say they'll do it verbally in front of the mirror. You also see those that will write them down frequently, whether that be daily, weekly, whatever you want to do. Rewriting those goals, again, studies show, I think it's over 3,000% increase in actually in terms of achieving those goals if you write them down. And again, this is just all from studies, so really interesting stats. But yeah, do write them down. Seems a bit weird when you first do it. It feels like, well, what we're doing, some sort of law of attraction thing here. But whatever the reality is that it does work. So, and you've still got to put the work in to do it, but the statistics show that it works. So do write them down, commit, believe, and then write them down. And then the bit that us accountants get excited about, we want to talk to you about measuring it. So you're going to need to measure it. So that might mean you haven't got a system right now. So if you want to do 4 sales calls a day, and that's going to generate X leads, you might want to be tracking the leads and the sales calls, but you might not have a system currently. So it might just be a simple, I need to set up a spreadsheet or a whiteboard or whatever you want to do. So set the systems up to be able to track them, and then diarise a date to review where you're at so you can understand. That could be month end, it could be middle of the month. You might want to look at it twice a month. You might only want to look at it once a quarter. You can do multiple things, but you want to be looking frequently so you can adjust your effort levels. So if you've not done your 4 sales calls a day, you might be thinking, well, and you looked at the end of the week, you might be thinking, okay, well, I need to do 6 next week every day, and adjust accordingly, and sit and make yourself accountable, review what you could do differently, what could have gone better, those kind of things, and then set that next goal and adjust it accordingly. Because it's all right when you set this master plan out, but of course they never kind of survive contact with the enemy, as it said. So do think about the place where you're going to look at that. And of course, if it's numbers driven, you're going to make sure that you need to make sure that you've got decent accounting systems with decent figures on, so you can actually see the consequences of what you've done. Are you hitting those sales figures? Is that sales figure correct? Can you get regular reporting? All those kind of things, and just make sure you've got that reporting so you can sit down, review, and then go again. And that's kind of the 5 key points for me. I think we've covered most of it there, and that will give you a good start. As I say, we could speak for hours on each of the individual points and strategies and all the rest of it, but I just wanted to give you a bit of a top level idea and a starting point for where you could go potentially, and what we've seen that works with other owners in terms of goal setting for 2022. And I hope this is going to be an amazing year for you. So do click and download the resources if you want. There's no barrier in front of it. You can just have it. I'm keen for you to get the best start in your business in 2022. So and if it has worked for you, please do share it in the comments, share this video with your friends, and look forward to seeing you in the next one. Have a good one.